Hello, welcome to Locked on Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episode, we finish our Pacific preview by getting to know the enemy of all enemies, the Vegas Golden Knights. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked on Sharks.
You're Locked on Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at Fear the Fin and San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you, of course, for making us your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, subscribe on YouTube. And we're basically back to being your team every day, as you're actually going to get another episode from me on Friday. And then we are back to 5 days a week. So I have Tony and Chris on from Locked on Vegas Golden Knights, where we talk about the Vegas Golden Knights and if this is kind of the beginning of the end for them, or if they still have another run and they reloaded this offseason. So enjoy my interview with Chris and Tony. All right, guys, we now bring in Tony and Chris from Locked on Golden Knights. How are you guys doing today?
All good here.
Happy Wednesday.
Yes. So we're gonna, continue. Actually, we're gonna end. We've hit the end of our Pacific Division tour.
Save the best for last. Save the best for last. I got it. I see how you do it up there.
Something like that. The Knights last year, of course, finished fourth with 94 points. Missed the playoffs for the first time in their division, thanks to one Night Slayer, Thomas Bordeleau, single-handedly crushing every Vegas fan's dream. And then it was a pretty ho-hum offseason in Vegas standards, right? So let's start there. What do you think was the biggest move of the offseason? We'll start with you, Chris.
Biggest move of the offseason. I mean, it's a tie, I guess. We had to, unfortunately, shed some cap. So sending Pat Chiaretti and Dylan Coghlan to the Carolina Hurricanes for
Nothing.
So but then Phil Kessel coming in, I think that is probably maybe it's a tick below that deal, but I think it's still pretty big news given what Kessel might bring to this team. 50-ish points with the Arizona Coyotes last year. And I think his goal total can certainly improve this year. And that same, hopefully, assist output can be equal to or greater. And maybe we'll forget about Pat Chiaretti pretty quickly. Who knows?
Tony, what do you think? I would probably go with hiring Bruce Cassidy, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
That was my big move there.
Yeah.
And Bruce Cassidy brought in to replace Pete DeBoer. And we heard Max Pacioretty saying that this was a team that had no accountability when he was here on the way out the door. And
Pete DeBoer? Sorry.
Yeah. And so, of course, Pete DeBoer pretty well. DeBoer's still sour grapes about this, and he just is on this tour of where woe is me. Despite having those 500 plus man games that they missed, VGK still did not play well when it counted, and they also played with a lack of enthusiasm. And I think what we're going to see is more. I think the system's going to be better personally under Bruce Cassidy, and I think defensively, I think they're going to be playing better, tighter, tighter checking, and I think it's going to help them out, I think, immensely this upcoming season. They talked a lot about his power play and how much he's going to improve that, but our numbers, our statistics don't jive. Chris and I have gone through that extensively, but I just still think, it's a good change, and they needed some change, something to get them moving in a different direction.
I mean, yeah, we as Sharks fans saw this. Pete DeBoer comes in, you make the finals or, the first season, and then, and then that's it's all downhill from there. So
this is MO that every team he goes to.
Just put your bets in for Dallas to go to the finals and you'll be fine. So
now he's wearing a cowboy hat.
Yes.
Kind of silly.
But and then I think the other big thing is kind of big story coming from Vegas's offseason is the goaltending, right? It's kind of a mess. Question mark?
I would put it a little bit better than a mess, but not far from it. It has the ability to go south pretty fast.
Mhm.
Logan Thompson single-handedly got the Vegas Golden Knights within striking distance of the playoffs at the end of last year. Just a remarkable, 20 or so games down the stretch where his save percentage was up there, win-loss was good, and there were games where he really put the team on his back. Something me and Tony talked about recently is now let's see what Logan Thompson is really made of, right? It's been 4 months of the offseason with the best scouts in the world, now telling the best coaches or the best players in the world how to score on Logan Thompson. So can Logan Thompson elevate his game, or Adin Hill to the rescue? You tell us.
No.
What's that going to be like, with Adin Hill here? What can he do? What are his capabilities?
Adin Hill, he had his flashes. His glove hand is atrocious.
We already got one of those.
Constantly beat glove hand. But he's a big guy. He takes up a lot of space in the net, and he's still young, and for the most part, until last year, he's been very durable, which is something I guess Knights fans have not seen in their crease as a durable goalie. But last year he played 25 games basically, and that was it. And the majority of those games were before the All-Star break. He missed a few games after the All-Star, or right around the All-Star break, and then he came back, played one game where he shut out the Kings, and then we didn't see him again. So he played one game between, I think, the end of January.
Elevated his stock right there.
End of January and the end of the season, he came one game and shut out the Kings, and that was the end of Adin Hill's tenure in San Jose. But yeah, I think it wouldn't be a normal offseason if Vegas didn't have a lot of drama around it, correct?
This is the best of all the dramas. This is VGK of our lives this year. This has been by far the best, because we see a lot of folks on the Locked On Network. They're always looking for content, and some of what they say, there's been a bit of a reach, right? Us every day, like we have something new happening. Like this summer, the content has just it's come to us because there's so much drama with this team.
All right, so the draft, I know you guys didn't have your first round pick. Kind of your quick summary, what do you think of the Vegas' draft this year?
Chris?
What does it matter? Whoever it is we're gonna trade him away in another year or two.
They're never gonna develop them.
Yeah. I don't get too excited about looking at our past. We don't have a lot of homegrown talent as far as players we drafted to playing today. I think Nick Hague, Zach Whitecloud, and Keegan Colasar. And if I'm missing someone, forgive me. You guys can attack me.
Probably Brendan Brisson this year too.
Brisson, that's something that we're certainly going to hit on, and we'll see. I think Phil Kessel might have knocked him actually down back into this to Henderson with our Silver Knights for a little bit at least. Kind of wait and see what happens there. But Brisson, someone we're very excited. I watched him a few games at the AHL level last year over at the Dollar Loan Center, and we're not going to draw comparisons to Ovechkin or anything like that, but he's that type of player on the power play.
Yes.
Where he can shoot, really good one-timer. And as far as this year's draft, talk to me in a year or two. That's kind of how VGK rolls with their drafts and things like that. And then 2 or 3 years, another podcast network can call me and Tony to get their analysis before we trade them.
And I know that Chris is really enamored with Matthias Sapovalev, especially the pronunciation of his last name. So
perfect.
All right, guys, before we continue talking with Chris and Tony, and we're going to look at, kind of what to expect for this season and who might be some wild card players for the Golden Knights. Let's take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at BetOnline. You guys know BetOnline is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. So find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including you've got tonight, you have Chargers Chiefs. You've got a big slate of games this weekend. So BetOnline's got you covered for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, which is always really fun, esports and scores. They're the fastest and easiest way to check in all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. So heading into training camp, what do you think is the biggest question facing the Knights, Tony?
It's got to be goaltending and how this team adapts. Well, there's actually three parts to this: goaltending, how they adapt to Bruce Cassidy and a new system, and Jack Eichel. Can he rebound? Can he come back? Can he be that superstar? Could he be that shining knight or whatever they call it around here? But to us, we really do believe. Chris and I both saw Eichel live last season. By far, not even close, the best player on the ice. But he didn't have complementary players for the most part on his line. He'll only be successful as who they put around him, the talent that will skate with him. He's by far the fastest skater. He's by far the best passer that this team has. And I think that is a big question mark, whether or not he can score a lot of points, put this team in position to win. Is he going to be known as a superstar that never makes the playoffs? Big question.
Hope not. No, I'm with Tony as far as the biggest questions go. More on goaltending. I think we just hit on that a little bit ago, but that's the real big question, right? Before we made the deal for Adin Hill, hello, good morning. Logan Thompson. There we go. Logan Thompson, folks. There we go. That's what I'm trying to talk about. I'm excited. Logan Thompson. Will he be able to carry the mail? He basically was going to be the starter, the day one starter, no questions asked, as of about 3 weeks ago. And then Adin Hill comes into the picture, and at least now there's some pressure on Logan Thompson to see what a veteran might not be the right thing to say about Adin Hill, because I think he's 74.
Yeah, he's got
played.
Yeah, he's got less than 100 games played. So
so he's. I mean, here's the VGK goaltending situation right now for our friends up in San Jose. 74 games, Adin Hill. I believe 20 games, Logan Thompson. Brossoit injured, so at the moment that doesn't matter. And then who could forget Michael Hutchinson?
Oh,
we made a deal for Michael Hutchinson.
The Michael Hutchinson.
The Michael Hutchinson. He has 125 games played. Now, that's literally at a pace of 12 games a season, going back to about 2006. But point being, and that was something me and Tony were trying to figure out too, like where does he fit in especially now that Adin Hill came? Are we going to send Hutchinson down and take away starts from some of our developing talent at that level? Like that's something that I'm having a hard time completely understanding. If Logan Thompson plays 55, 60 games, is that a good thing this year for the Golden Knights? Or was Adin Hill brought on to get maybe 20, 25 games, and then Brossoit, once his health comes back, is he going to get 20, 25 games? Like, how's that whole carousel going to work out? And the crazier thing, of those goalies I mentioned, Logan Thompson is the only one that has a two-way deal right now. So at some point, Adin Hill and Brossoit might be the goalies by necessity, with our best goalie riding away down Henderson for a little bit.
Yeah, and Brossoit, we don't even know if he's going to play, when he's going to play. They've not given us a ton of information about him. He's out with an injury, and they love that LTIR here in Las Vegas, as you know. Yes. Let's see what really screwed Vegas and the Golden Knights. The fact that it was rather late in the whole free agent process when we finally found out officially. Now, VGK says they never knew that Robin Leonard needed, wink. That Robin Leonard needed not one, but 2 hip surgeries. They had to have known, right? Yeah. And Kelly McCrimmon said that he thought that maybe he would make it through the season. Again, that's got to be like on thin ice, right? Yeah. As far as his status goes. And so that screwed up everything, because they couldn't go after a top free agent. And all the goaltenders, all the good ones, save, Adin Hill, were all gone. They were all gone by that time. So it really messed them up. But Leonard's a mess. I mean, the shoulder surgery, 2 hips, and a knee. And here's a guy that was telling us all season long, no, I'm not injured. I'm fine. Yeah, okay. They're putting him back together. He'll be the $6 million man.
Yes.
$5 million man.
$5 million. Yes. So I have to kind of ask, with the way this team is built, it kind of reminds me of what we saw actually in San Jose recently, where you have a very top heavy roster. A lot of money, is tied up in Stone and Eichel, et cetera, et cetera. And then
Carlson,
for us, Eric Carlson. Yeah.
For us.
Oh yeah. William Carlson.
Mild Bill.
Yes. But then you're trying to kind of supplement around the fringes with guys who are maybe not a NHL caliber talent, or just guys who aren't ready to be in the NHL. Are you guys worried that this might be where the bottom just kind of falls out for this team?
Before Tony craps on our parade here, I'll jump in for a second here. So our top 6 is looking very solid. I mean, Marchessault, Riley Smith, William Karlsson should even be our line 3 center possibly.
Mm-hmm.
On top, Jack Eichel, Marchessault, Phil Kessel, I think slots in very nicely on that top line.
Third line.
Fine, third line. Put him on the third line, Tony. I'm okay with that too.
Okay.
Second line, any combination of Chandler Stevenson, Riley Smith, Mark Stone, and then all the way down to the third line. That's where William Karlsson possibly slots in, or Phil Kessel. So I think our top 9 is solid. There was so much coming out of last year's training camp about line 4. Like that was all we ever heard DeBoer and everyone talking about was the excitement of Nicholas Waugh between Keegan Kolesar and William Carrier. And that actually, San Jose got to see that for 2 periods before Keegan Kolesar went down. And then fortunately, we lost that game in the shootouts. The defense is still pretty solid. Now, another question, Tony, we probably didn't even talk about was Nick Hague right now. Nick Hague is still an unsigned RFA.
After Kelly McCrimmon said it was a priority to sign Nick Hague, there's been no contact, no dialogue since early July. Go ahead, Chris.
No, Tony, you're 1,000% right there. That's fine. You're on the ball there. But point being, the offense is pretty deep. We have reinforcements at the AHL level, starting with Breswan and then going back to a few different players, of course. The defense is strong with, again, more reinforcements at the Henderson level right now. If that can stick together and if the goaltending can come together, then, this team might make some noise. But, are they necessarily top heavy with not a lot around them? I don't necessarily buy that statement completely. Mm-hmm. But if a couple of those top heavy players go down, that's when things will be tested. And hopefully it doesn't happen too often next year because it failed last year.
So go check the 2018-2019 Sharks roster, and that's exact.
I get it. We said the same thing. I still to this day don't understand the Sharks acquiring Karlsson. That was something I still did not understand at the time.
That's was in the bidding. Yeah,
that's for a whole nother conversation there. But yes, we don't have enough time.
I'm more concerned. I'll tell you, JD. I'm more concerned about VGK versus the salary cap than versus missing 500 plus man games. Mm-hmm. The salary cap has just been a killer here, and they have to be able. Chris mentioned 4 lines. Let's see if they have the availability to roll 4 lines this year, because they've not had that opportunity late in the season. The last couple of years, it's come back to bite them, where they're up against the salary cap late in the season. They're short players. They're rolling with 3 lines, and then guys are double shifting, and it's been a mess. Mm-hmm. So I'm more concerned about the salary cap than I am anything else with this team, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, we've seen this picture in San Jose where it's you've got a lot of top heavy guys, and if those guys either don't produce what they're expect to, or if they get injured, and then you're riding guys who maybe aren't quite ready. But so yeah, I think Vegas in the Pacific. We'll get into the Pacific a little bit later, but Vegas feels a very high ceiling, low floor team where you could tell me that they're second in the Pacific, or you could tell me they're 6th in the Pacific, and I could believe both ends of the argument. But Vegas, so what do you think is going to be this team's calling card? What's going to be their biggest strength, Tony?
Well, they have to first establish an identity. Mm-hmm. They don't, that was one of the biggest issues this past season. They did not have an identity. You can't tell me what VGK was this past season. Now, I think their identity will be, they're such a finesse team. I'm so interested to see what Bruce Cassidy does to get them to play a little tougher. Mm-hmm. And to play better defensively on both ends of the rink. And so for me, I just think that is probably the number one issue there is first of all, you need to establish an identity. And again, they're going to have to, with their top 6, they are going to have to score goals, and they're going to have to finish plays. They didn't finish plays this past season. Chris?
I never bought into the season 1 misfits concept a whole lot. And what I mean when I say that is I don't think there was all this rage in the locker room amongst the Vegas Golden Knights. Oh, I can't believe I wasn't protected, so I'm going to go to Vegas and we're going to kick butt in season 1 and go to the Stanley Cup final. I don't think that was a lot of the anger that, even though it was portrayed amongst many of the players, I don't necessarily think there was a lot of anger about not being protected.
Yeah.
These are professional adults that understand the business side of the game, many of them being veterans. But now this year, I do think there is a chip on the shoulder of a bunch of the players, especially the day one players who have been here and seen all that success and now not making the playoffs. So I think some of that swagger from season 1 might actually be realized entering season 6 because there's anger. The players were upset about not making the playoffs, rightfully so. Arguably, season 5 was the best paper roster that we had. And then we failed down the stretch, number 1, to win some big games. Obviously, the Sharks know about that. And then with all the injuries. So there's going to be some anger. There's going to be some swagger, I think. And that, I think, could be the biggest strength for season 6.
All right. What do you think is going to be this team's biggest weakness or area that they're going to need to improve on? Goaltending across the board.
I think goaltending is the concern.
What about power play? I think that's a major concern too.
Steve's spot. Bye, buddy.
No, the power play is something that needs to be, and Cassidy, last couple of years did decline a little bit, but a couple of years before, Cassidy did have some
went
teams.
0 for 40 at one point. At one juncture, they went 0 for 40. I mean, we thought VGK was bad at 0 for 19. 0 for 40.
That's the floor, Tony, but the ceiling, Cassidy did have some teams, I think, as high as the top 3, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe Cassidy will have this is his first time in a long time going through the process of changing teams. He did it once before, but he was younger at the time. And this is really his first time as a professional doing it. So maybe Cassidy will take a page out of the DeBoer book and the players will buy in right away and we'll have some success.
All right. What do you think is the best case scenario for Vegas, Chris, for this season?
Best case is still a Stanley Cup contender. I do believe that if the goaltending comes together, if Cassidy can help the power play unit, the difference for the VGK power play from being I think 25th or 26th is where we finished, to being a top 10 club was 8 goals. It was 8 or 11 goals. That was the number. It was some really small number like that. So it doesn't take a lot to improve the power play. And you attribute some of that to the man games lost and some to the system. Hopefully we have a little better luck and Cassidy can obviously improve on whatever power play formulas we had going last year. So the ceiling is a Stanley Cup contending team that can go deep into the playoffs. But I think me and Tony also are in the same breath that the floor is General Manager Kelly McCrimmon being fired in December because he put together a roster that just didn't get there. Is McCrimmon necessarily on the hot seats? He could certainly be. I'm a McCrimmon truther. Me and Tony have had this argument before, but I am also in Tony's corner in the sense that if the team does not get off to a hot start, I could see McCrimmon being the first fallback person come November or December.
Yeah, and I think, a slow start, that will definitely be the end of Kelly McCrimmon. I think, again, the ceiling would be, I still say they're probably a top 3 team at the end of the season if they can begin to mesh and get a lot of those issues solved. And I think the players will be happier that are returning, to this team. And they did get back a lot of their RFAs, including, Riley Smith. It was he was an unrestricted free agent, right? But, you had Leshizin and you had Nick Waugh and you had players like Ron Bjorg, and they got back a lot of their players. And so they definitely believe that this is the roster that they can win with and they could get into the playoffs and they feel like they can make a run. Now let's see if they can mesh together and if they could get some good goaltending. They're going to have to rely on some hot goaltending, and they're going to have to check like never before the way Cassidy likes to do in front of the net for them to be successful.
All right, guys, before we finish up and we look at where Vegas fits in the Pacific and how we see the Pacific kind of shaking out, do want to let you guys know about the Locked On NHL show. So thank you guys, of course, for making us your first listen. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can subscribe to Locked On Sharks on YouTube if you haven't already. But make sure you guys go check out the Locked On NHL show when you're done with this one. They're covering all the topics in the NHL and getting you guys ready for a new season, which is basically here right now. So When you're not listening to Locked On Sharks, go check out Locked On NHL wherever you get podcasts, and of course, subscribe to them on YouTube as well. All right, who do you think is the biggest wild card for Vegas this season, Tony?
Biggest wild card. Well, the biggest wild card for me is the assistant coach, John Stevens, who's won a couple of Stanley Cups with LA with the Kings, runs a tight system. He wants the players to be disciplined, and I think he's a good coach. And if he can get the players to listen to what he's trying to do, and I think Bruce Cassidy is going to lean on him a lot, then I think they could be successful. That's my wild card. I know I went off the rails a
that's
little
off
bit,
the board. That's
what we do.
No, that was pretty solid, Tony. That was actually that was like you put research into that, and we should do the more late night shows more often instead of the morning. You're on it tonight, man.
Yeah, I'm a night owl.
All right, Chris, who's your wild card person or player this year?
As much as I want to say Chance, our mascot, to upstage Tony, no, I'm going to go with William Karlsson this year. Karlsson, after scoring 40 whatever goals it was, and
43
right now, 43,
season.
Tony,
43.
of course. After scoring 43 goals, then coming back with what seemed to be a big drought of 24 goals, I believe is yet to crack 20 goals or a 20-goal pace since those first two seasons. So my hope is, under the DeBoer era, Karlsson did not do very well. So I'm simply hoping Karlsson was a casualty, if you will, of a system where he just couldn't fit in. And I'm really hoping that Cassidy can go ahead and find a way to get him. 25 goals would be a wonderful place for Karlsson, plus or minus. And then, obviously his penalty kill, part, his role in the power kill continues.
I also have, again, when you're talking about wild cards, players that come off of like career best seasons, I'm always leery. Can they play consistent? Can they come back? Can they at least equal that or come close? Wild cards, Chandler Stevenson. How does he play within this new system? How does he mesh in? Again, he could be on the top line. He could be on the third line. We don't know where they're going to put him currently. And so, he had like 64 points this past season, and he was an absolute steal and one of the better finds by VGK to get him from a fourth liner in Washington and bring him to the Golden Knights, where I thought he was an all-star this past season. But I'd like to see how he performs now this season. Can he string together back-to-back successful seasons of 60-plus points?
All right, who's the most intriguing young player or rookie guy or kind of guy you're keeping your eye on right now?
Go ahead, Chris.
I think
we're going to say, go ahead, Brisson.
No. I'm going with Zach Whitecloud. I figured you were going to go first and probably say Brisson, but no, I like Zach Whitecloud, and I'll put a write-in vote also for Nick Waugh. But starting with Zach Whitecloud, he is someone that I think is going to be blossoming into a very, very, very top elite level defenseman as his career progresses. He was a plus 20 something on the VGK roster last year on a team that just gave up a ton of goals. Our plus minus as a team was very poor. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Zach Whitecloud, what type of expanded, even leadership type of role he can take. And then also Nicholas Waugh would be the other one. Goes to 15 goals last season, played around all four lines. He can play on the top line. I think if we needed him there, he can slot really well into the third or fourth line, depending on how the roster composition of this team takes, what type of role that takes. But if he is in the top nine, let's see if he can become a 20-goal scorer.
Yeah, and I'm in unison with Chris. I think that Nick Waugh is the player to watch because I guess Bruce Cassidy already had a discussion with him that he will be slotted to play on different lines, and let's see how he fits in. And then will he continue to change the lines if Waugh is successful on one line? That's one of the things. Cassidy will move these players around like nobody's business, and that's something that the players, I think, are going to have to adapt to as well. There won't be, I don't think, the misfit line, I don't think that's going to stay intact. I think he's going to make a lot of maneuvers and change things as needed.
All right, the big question: where does Vegas finish in the Pacific this year?
Third,
Tony.
Yeah, I know. I'm with Tony. I think third behind the Flames and the Oilers. 2 to 4 points possibly ahead of the Kings, and about 26 points ahead of the Sharks.
Oh, the Sharks are gonna be the worst team in the Pacific. I am on record, if anybody's listened to me, I think they're going to be the Sharks are going to be one of the 5 worst teams in the NHL, and I'm all for it because if you reach for the Connor Bedard's, the worst happens is you fall among the Fantillis. So, but I mean, I like I said earlier, I think with the Pacific, I think it's gonna be a much better Pacific than we've seen the past couple of years. But
2 years from now, it's going to be amazing. 2 or 3 years, it's going to be remarkable.
It's going to be insane,
like the Atlantic.
But I think I have Vegas like 5th or 6th.
That's okay. That's okay.
Fair.
There's so many questions, that we have as well. And the one thing that I think you have to remember is Bruce Cassidy, though, has owned the Pacific. Has he ever lost? Has he ever lost to the Sharks? Chris, help me out here.
Not many people have, but sorry. No, and I forgot the Sinbin had a real good article about his success.
16-0 or something.
Yeah.
Well, it was really good the last couple of years.
So, but I mean, I think though, like Edmonton, you have Connor McDavid and Draisaitl are 2 of the best players in the world, and I think at least Vegas, you have Eichel and Stone who can kind of match up with.
Do we have Stone? That's a big question too. Another question, because we don't know his back injury still like hobbling around. He's skating on the ice. Oh, he could come back day 1. He could come back later in the season. Nobody knows. No one knows.
On paper, you have Eichel and Stone, but I think
Stone's too slow to play with Eichel too. That's another discussion.
Yeah. But then Calgary, I think they did a good job pivoting on the fly this year.
Huge. They were amazing.
Yeah. I think Vancouver is kind of the team we're all being really sleeping on, because I think that team is going to be able to roll 4 lines who can all score easily. They
were a playoff team under Boudreau if he would have started the season with the stats.
So, and yeah, I think Elias Peterson is going to have his superstar season where we're like, oh, that guy is really good, and have his first 100-point season this year. And LA was a playoff team last year, and they're going to keep getting better. The Ducks have Zegras Zegras and McTavish. And those guys are going to be tearing up shop. And then with the Kraken, you look at the Kraken, having Beniers and Shane Wright as your foundation for your entire franchise is a pretty solid start. And then the Sharks, which we are going to be poo-poo platter bad, but that's fine. But
Chris wants to know when you're going to raise the banner for beating VGK. Was that your question, Chris?
Yes. Well, we first have to retire Marlowe's number. Finally, we're getting our first jersey retirement in our 30+ years with Patrick Marleau, and then then the Bordelot jersey is going to go right up there next to it. So,
nice.
Yes. So, but yeah, I mean, it was I like I said, I think the Pacific's going to be way more fun. I'm hesitant on Vegas just because, like I said, I literally watched this story the past couple of years.
It's 100% fair. It really is. It really is.
And in the goaltending, I think Logan Thompson's going to be a great goaltender in the future, but I think it's a lot to ask for this guy in his first full season to be like, hey, you got to carry this franchise right now.
Yeah, he's still a rookie. I mean, he's basically a rookie. And the one question that we've raised on our show, Chris and I are both wondering, what will he be like now that there's a lot of film, on Logan Thompson? How's he going to respond? How is he going to be facing a team for a second time? We'll use the baseball analogy. You can go through that lineup once, you look great, and then you come back again.
That second, third
rotation, and we don't know. We just don't know. But he is acrobatic. He's fun to watch. Marc-Andre Fleury took him under his wing when he was here. And you could see a lot of that in the game that Logan Thompson plays, but can he do that consistently? It's again, and then if he can't, and then who fills in? Does Adin Hill? Does he jump up and now he's going to be the starter?
Just start Adin Hill versus Calgary.
I don't believe in.
You'll be fine.
I do not believe
and the Kings.
Yeah, I'm not a Brossoit fan at all, But he's going to start probably on the LTIR anyway, and. I don't know. He was really bad. He's not durable enough, to play consistently, to play as a regular goaltender.
All right, Tony, Chris, where can the people find you guys?
Chris,
Tony, you're really good at this place. At this stuff.
You and your man cave, Chris.
Yes.
He is at TD. He is at TD Chris G on Twitter. I am at Tony Dasco on Twitter. We are at Locked On VGK. You could find us on Twitter. You could find us wherever you get your podcast in the entire universe. And now, thanks to Chris, Locked On VGK, you could find us on YouTube. Please subscribe.
All right, boys. Thanks for coming on. I'm sure we'll talk soon as the season gets underway.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Tony and Chris about Vegas Golden Knights. I'm pretty down on them. This has a very much a Sharks 1920 season where coming off their Western Conference Finals run where they kind of try to bring as much as the band back together, but you started losing some of the support pieces, Pavelski being gone and Nyquist being gone. And some of these guys who kind of help propel your run start losing those pieces. Guys get a little bit older, and then the thing starts to kind of fall apart. I think we saw the cracks at the beginning of during the season last year. And Stone's older, they're losing guys. I don't know if they have the replacements right now. And the goaltending is a huge, huge question mark with it. So I'm pretty down on the Golden Knights this year, but hope you guys enjoyed my interview with them. We will be back tomorrow to get you guys ready for the rookie tournament this weekend. Going to be looking at the roster, which guys I'm excited to watch, which guys I'm looking for out of some of these guys. So make sure you guys check that out wherever you get podcasts, and of course subscribe on YouTube. You can of course follow the show along on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram over at Locked On Sharks, especially on Twitter when games are back. Going to very active on the old Twitter there, so Locked On Sharks. And then, like I said, make sure you guys Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you get podcasts, subscribe there. YouTube, subscribe. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at myfryhole. And again, we'll be back on Friday. And then next week, we are 5 days a week. Going to recap. Monday, we'll recap the first 2 games of the rookie tournament, and then get you guys ready for training camp here. Look at some of the big battles heading into training camp. So that'll do it for me tonight. Bye, friends.